Coming to you live from the JRE Tobacco Aladino Mobile Studios, it's the Cigar Pulpit.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another sermon from the Cigar Pulpit. I'm the Bishop of the Burn, Nick, and today, well, you're kind of going to get another repeat because we had a little bit of a schedule conflict here. So today was going to be the episode where Renee Castaneda, I hope I didn't butcher that too bad, Renee, from Villiger Cigars was going to join us. And, well, schedule-wise, we had something come up. And so it was one of those things where I could do an episode by myself, and I really didn't feel like that. Or I could find an appropriate rewind to plug in here because we're going to have Renee on Tuesday's show. And so we are going to circle back to an older episode where we welcomed Drew Newman of JC Newman Cigars onto the show, and we smoked the American for the first time with Drew on the phone. And I kind of thought this was an appropriate episode given the fact that the 4th of July is rapidly approaching, and you guys can listen to us experience the American for the first time. Drew's going to go into all the different background and details of how the American cigar came about. He's also going to talk a little bit about, the company, JC Newman as a whole. And also, as a nice little time capsule, he talks about how the renovations at the El Reloj factory are rapidly concluding and that they're going to be opening for tours here shortly. And I know that a lot of you have already gone down to Ybor City and taken the tours, but if you haven't, you need to do so because the renovations were very, very nice, and I mean it's a gorgeous facility. So make sure you make your way down there and check it out. But that's what's going to be this episode. So sorry about that. We'll make it up next week. We'll have 2 original shows. I 100% promise you. So need to get a little housekeeping out of the way. The Cut is brought to you by Riverman Cigars of Crestwood, Missouri. Dan the Man Ponder over there at Riverman Cigars. He's got some great cigars in stock, including the Pledge of Allegiance from EP Carrillo. He did get that in this week, and if you guys are wanting to try this limited edition cigar from EP Carrillo, you can give Dan the Man Ponder a call over there, and he can get a box of cigars or singles or accessories sent out to you right away because he does do mail order. So make sure you give Dan the Man Ponder and Miss Cindy and all the rest over there at Riverman Cigar Company a call, and they can get that stuff sent to you right away. It's Riverman Cigars, Crestwood, Missouri. I also need to give a shout out to our studio sponsor, JRE Tobacco Aladino Cigars. We just had Trey Mac on the show on Tuesday for Ask the Boys. And guys, there's some really great stuff coming up at PCA that you're going to want to check out. Same from United Cigars, who normally we do the One Must Go segment. But United Cigars, they've got some fantastic stuff coming up at PCA, including that aged Atabay cigar, and they've got the round United, core line cigars. Just some really great stuff coming from United Cigars that you're going to want to check out as well. And then finally, Villiger Cigars. Guys, we've been saying Villiger Cigars, you need to check them out. I used the store locator on their website just earlier today and found that there is one store in the St. Louis area that does carry them. So I'll be swinging by there. But again, we're going to find out all about Villiger Cigars next week when I sit down with Renee and we get all the details about what they're unveiling at PCA. And then finally, there's My Monthly Cigars. My Monthly Cigars, premium cigar subscription service. You get a box of cigars sent to your door every month with, anywhere between 2 to 8 premium cigars in there. They've got that variety of sizes with different price points, all good for the wallet. And if you use offer code PULPIT, PULPIT, get you free shipping on the first box or 20% off any of the items in the online store. So head on over to mymonthlycigars.com, check out the different subscription options, as well as the fucking good coffee. Otherwise, I think that's it. We're on the socials at The Cigar Pulpit on Instagram. We have the Pulpit Parishioners group on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. YouTube, and I do need your calls for Ask the Boys, area code 863-874-0000. Once again, guys, I apologize for the schedule mix-up, but I wanted to get at least something out for you. There will be 2 original shows next week. I'm sitting down Saturday with a listener who's in town and doing that, and then Renee and I will be sitting down on Monday to get the episode for Tuesday done. So make sure you check both of those out, and have a good, safe, happy weekend, and enjoy this flashback where we sit down with Drew Newman of JC Newman. Thanks, guys. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another sermon from the Cigar Pulpit. I'm Nick, the Bishop of the Burn, and with me, as always,
it's Gator.
And we are joined by a special guest today on the phone. We have Drew Newman of JC Newman Cigars. Hello, Drew.
Good afternoon, Bishop. How are you?
I am great, and you are joining us for a very special reason. So I had a friend of mine through Instagram, Adam Stevens, send me a couple of the American cigars. We got the American number 3, which I believe measures 4.5 by 50, and so we got these, and they're a little hard to come by here in the middle of the country, and so they're awful special, and so we figured we'd go ahead and invite Mr. Newman onto the show and talk a little bit about the cigars. So we appreciate your time, Drew.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
So would you tell us a little bit about what we're about to smoke here?
Sure. Absolutely. So there are many wonderful cigars handmade all around the world, but there really is no cigar like the American. And what makes the American unique is that it's the first 100% all-American cigar. And what I mean by that is that we hand roll the American in our 109-year-old cigar factory in the historic cigar city of Tampa, Florida, using all American heirloom tobaccos. But not only are all the components of the cigar itself made in America and grown in America, but everything about the project is all American. So the wood in the boxes, for instance, is grown in America, in Ohio. The boxes are made in Miami. The cellophane tubes are made in Pennsylvania. The hinges on the boxes are made in Massachusetts. The paper on the bands and the labels are made in Wisconsin using inks from North Carolina. Literally from start to finish, every part about this project is all American, which really speaks to who we are as a family and as a company. And we're a 124-year-old, 4-generation American family-owned and operated business. And so we're really excited to share the American and really help celebrate the fact that the United States has a very rich and long-standing tradition of premium cigars. And it's a very special product, and so happy to share it with you guys today.
Yeah. So from my research, it seems that from between 1885-ish or so and like the 1920s, so right up before the Great Depression, there were 150 cigar factories operating in and around Tampa, making like 500,000 cigars every year and everything. And you guys are, correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are located in Ybor City, right?
So we are located in the historic El Reloj Cigar Factory in the Ybor City Historic District. And El Reloj in Spanish means the watch, and that refers to the famous clock tower on our factory in Tampa. It's a beautiful 109-year-old building, and that's where we roll the American, and where our headquarters is, and we roll other cigars there too. It's a very special building that we're in the process of restoring right now in preparation for our company's 125th anniversary next year. And so we'd love to invite you and all your listeners to come visit us in the cigar city of Tampa, Florida next year to celebrate our anniversary and to tour what really is the last operating cigar factory in Ybor City.
Definitely.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, this is Gator, by the way. If I'm not mistaken, the American was the first cigar rolled in that factory, around 1910?
Exactly. And so when my great grandfather founded our company in 1895, he started our business in Cleveland, Ohio. And my grandfather moved our company from Cleveland to Tampa in 1954. And that's when we bought the historic El Reloj cigar factory and moved into that building. But our home, our building, El Reloj, was built in 1910 by the Regensburg family. And the very first cigar that they rolled in the building in 1910 was the American. And we have a beautiful old image of our factory from the University of South Florida's archives with a big banner that says the American flying at the top of our clock tower. So even though we are just now reintroducing the American as the first 100% all-American cigar in the world, the brand's history and lineage goes back more than a century. It's a historic American cigar brand.
So you've been pretty instrumental in this project. Like, is it safe to say that this has pretty much been your baby to bring back the American?
Yeah, this is a project that we've been working on for about 3.5 years now. I'm sure you guys know, but when you create a new cigar, it's a really long process, in part because we're dealing with all natural tobacco that has to be fermented and aged. It's not a machine that we're using to make these cigars. And so creating a new cigar takes years, and we've been working on this project for 3.5 years. It took us a while to get it right, in large part because we're doing a lot of things in the States that nobody else is doing. And so we kind of had to figure out how to make a all-American cigar by hand in the States all over again. So it took a while, but we think it was well worth the wait. And I think you'll agree that it's a unique cigar, a special cigar, and it's just a wonderful way to celebrate the American cigar tradition.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, it comes in 4 sizes. You've got the Churchill, Torpedo, Toro, and the Robusto, which we'll be smoking today.
Yeah, that's what we're selling it now. We roll it in a few other sizes just for fun, but those are the 4 sizes we've released so far, and so happy you guys can enjoy it.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
awesome.
So
I'm going to go ahead and cut my cigar.
He's getting ready to cut. I'm getting ready to light.
Nice.
And we're going to get this guy going here.
I don't want to wait any longer. We're going to fire this up and try it out.
While you guys are lighting the cigar, let me tell you a little more about what's in it. And so, again, the cigar from start to finish is all American. So, of course, that means it's only tobaccos grown in the United States in the cigar. And what you'll taste at the beginning when you first puff on it really is the wrapper. And what we have on the American is Florida sun-grown wrapper. It's tobacco grown on an 8-acre farm just north of Orlando by Jeff Borshowitz, a longtime cigar retailer and cigar enthusiast in Florida. And you may have seen the Drew Estate Florida sun-grown cigar, which has become very popular too. But that cigar has Jeff's tobacco in the filler. So the American really is the first cigar with the Florida sun-grown as a wrapper. And so it's unique in that as well, that it's the first time anyone has seen in generations what Florida-grown tobacco is like. The binder is traditional Connecticut broadleaf, the most popular American premium cigar tobacco. And Connecticut broadleaf has been grown in the Connecticut River Valley outside of Hartford since the mid-1700s. So it's a historic American heirloom cigar tobacco leaf. And our 8th-generation family farmer in Connecticut who grows the binder for us also grows a little bit of the Connecticut Havana seed filler that we blend into the American. And the rest of the filler is grown by the Mennonites in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, where the Amish and the Mennonites have been growing American cigar tobacco since the 1600s. And so what you're tasting with the American really is history. It's the fact that we have centuries of cigar history in the United States that is showcased in the American with its 100% all-American tobacco.
That's really neat. I'm getting kind of a little bit of a, I don't know, cedary, creamy, maybe like a toasted bread kind of taste off the beginning of this thing. I don't know, Jeff, what are you getting off of it?
I don't know if I'm getting toasted bread.
A little bit.
It's kind of a medium-bodied smoke. It's very flavorful. I can't put my finger on what it is. Toasted bread, not so much.
I don't know. Kind of get the toasted bread.
Hey, everybody's got a different palate.
So there you go. How many people do you have rolling the American down at your factory there?
Right now we have 2 hand cigar rollers make the American. Each one rolls about 100 cigars per day. So our production really is 200 cigars a day, 1,000 per week, more or less. But the way we're rolling the American is quite unusual. And what I mean by that is if we go to our factory or others in Nicaragua, Honduras, the Dominican Republic, their rollers, bunchers, packers, everyone is paid on piecework. The more cigars you roll, the more cigars you pack, the more you're paid. With the American, we wanted to make sure that every cigar was perfect. And so we took away the incentive for somebody to roll too quickly. And so our cigar rollers are paid a salary, and they're salaried employees, and they roll about 100 cigars a day, more or less. But more important than the number is just making sure that every cigar is perfect. And so we have 2 rollers in Tampa and a team that supports them, that ferments and prepares the tobacco, that bans the cigars, that inspects the cigars. It's a little factory within a factory in our El Reloj cigar factory in Tampa. And starting in February, you'll be able to come to our factory and visit and see the American rolled in our El Reloj factory in Tampa.
And that was something I wanted to get to, is I know that you guys are doing a lot of renovation and everything. I follow it on Instagram, and I really like seeing all the pictures of all the old photos and various items and stuff that you guys seem to be finding all over the place and in your factory as you're doing this work and everything. What can you tell us a bit about the renovation work that you're doing, but then in turn, you're opening up your factory as a cigar museum early next year, correct?
Yeah, exactly. And so our factory El Reloj was built in 1910. It's been used as a cigar factory for more than a century. And when it was built 109 years ago, it was thought to be the largest cigar factory in the world. It was built to have 1,000 employees there, rolling cigars, making cigars every day. So it's a beautiful building built in the Ybor City style, which means 3 stories plus a basement running east to west to capture the northern light. And so it's a beautiful example of Ybor City's cigar history there. But as I'm sure you can imagine, after 109 years of wear, tear, and love, the factory is showing its age. Mm-hmm. And so in anticipation for our 125th anniversary next year, we've been working with a historic preservation architect and some engineer and construction folks to restore El Reloj to its grandeur, to restore it to the way it was a century ago. And so we're making some sort of structural improvements just to shore up the building so that it will last for another 100 years. We're making some operational improvements that will allow us to ship more cigars, for example. And then we're also making some visitor improvements as well, which will allow us to turn El Reloj into what we hope will be the premier cigar tourism destination in the United States. And what I mean by that is, if you think about wineries in California and elsewhere, and people who go there for a tour, a tasting, to really understand what it takes to grow grapes and to make wine, or that the Bourbon Trail or craft breweries that welcome visitors in for tours and tastings. We want to do the same for premium cigars. We want to be that destination for passionate cigar aficionados to come to the cigar city, learn how cigars are made, see it, even roll a cigar yourself if you want to. And we want to do that in the cigar city of Tampa, Florida. So starting February, when our construction is complete, we will rededicate our El Reloj cigar factory and open it up to visitors. And included in there will be a new cigar museum telling the story of our 124 years in business, as well as a history of Ybor City. We're going to have a theater showing old cigar films and news clips and stories about Ybor City. We'll have an event space so that we can host events and meetings, weddings, conferences, and so forth in a cigar-friendly atmosphere. We're going to have a new handmade cigar factory within a factory on our third floor where we'll be rolling the American and other cigars. And when you walk in there, it's going to feel like you stepped back in time. You step back into a cigar factory from Ybor City 100 years ago. And we're going to have a factory store as well where you can see and buy cigars that we roll in Tampa, as well as from every other little Ybor City cigar company as well. There's a bunch of little 1, 2, 3 roller cigar companies. We want to showcase their cigars as well so that visitors can come in and see Ybor City and the history and be able to experience the cigar culture and the cigar community firsthand. So we're very excited by it and hope that you and your listeners will come and visit us in Tampa early next year.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds really cool.
I think a trip can be arranged.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Now, I want to throw in real quick. You were talking about construction there with the building and whatnot, and we were talking about the 2 rollers you have. And I've got to compliment them. This is a perfectly constructed cigar. And, I mean, it's just, it's solid. It is smoking well. I've got a great line.
It's a super tight burn line.
Oh, absolutely. This is a very impressive cigar.
Well, thank you very much for saying that.
So your family, you've pointed out your family business has been active for 124 years. What does it mean to you to have brought back through your efforts to have brought back the American and put your stamp as a 4th generation member of this family, to put your stamp on the company's history?
You know, it's a real privilege for me to be able to continue a legacy that my great-grandfather started 124 years ago. We're a family business. We've been that way for more than a century. And our one goal as a company is we just want to continue rolling cigars by hand 100 years from now. We make our cigars today just like my great-grandfather did in 1895, and we want to continue this tradition and this legacy for another century. And so being able to restore El Reloj is one way to do that and signals our investment in the future. And in addition, restoring our factory in Tampa and introducing the American and celebrating the history of Ybor City is our way of also giving back to the city of Tampa, which has supported us and supported the cigar industry for so long. Before the cigar industry came to Tampa in the 1880s, Tampa was little more than just a village at the mouth of a river. There was very few people there, no industry, and it was a tiny little town. And so the cigar industry really is what caused Tampa to develop into the city that it is today. And now that we're the last operating cigar factory in Tampa, we feel a social and a moral obligation to our community to be able to tell the story of Tampa's cigar heritage and keep that heritage, keep that legacy alive for future generations. So it's very exciting and wonderful and humbling to be able to continue this legacy and this tradition as a family as well as a community in Tampa.
Now, you touched on something in your answer there about how you'd like to continue the cigar making process as the way you've done it for the next 100 years. And I know that you serve as the general counsel for your family's company, correct?
Right.
And I know you've been very active in the efforts lobbying the FDA and the federal government and speaking out on behalf of the premium cigar industry in regards to federal regulation. Can you tell us a little bit about your work on that front and kind of what you see coming to the cigar industry in the next couple of years?
Absolutely. So first of all, we're a family business owned and operated by our family. And so as a family business, all of us kind of do a little bit of everything, whether it's operations, marketing, product development. But in my case, I'm the Newman who went to law school, which also makes me the company lawyer. And the reality is that the world that we live in today means that the cigar industry is being regulated by the FDA here, being regulated by similar entities in pretty much every country around the world. And so a lot of the work that I do is related to that. I lived in Washington, D.C. for 10 years and worked for the government there for a while. So I'm one of the unique people in the industry in that I can roll a cigar with my own hands and understand the process very well, but I also understand the legal world and the regulatory world very well too. And so I spend a lot of time going back to Washington these days, just trying to help our legislators, trying to help the FDA understand what a premium cigar is and how it's a handcrafted, all-natural, old-world tradition, and why treating it and regulating it like a cigarette or like an e-cigarette or even like a mass-market cigar just really doesn't make sense because our goal, again, is to be in business for another 100 years. In order to do that, we need to make sure that the government allows us to do that. So these days it takes a lot of time and effort trying to help ensure that that we can all be enjoying premium cigars in the United States for another 100 years.
So then in terms of, I've spoken with Frank Herrera, and he's kind of basically said the FDA regulations are what the FDA regulations are at this point, and everybody's just going to have to figure out a way to live within them, and that sort of. And I'm kind of paraphrasing what he said, so I'm not saying he said that exactly, but within that, so what do you see in the near future for the cigar industry dealing with these FDA regulations and various things like flavor bans and everything else?
Well, I think there's still a lot of unknowns. When the FDA decided in 2016 to expand its authority beyond cigarettes and smokeless tobacco to cover every type of tobacco product, the FDA basically made that decision and at the same time said, we'll figure out many of the details later. And so here we are 3+ years later, and there's still a lot of unknowns. Specifically, there are 3 parts of FDA regulation that worry us the most. The first being pre-market review, substantial equivalency. The second being HPHC health testing, and the third being warning labels. And for the first 2 of those items, no one really knows, including FDA, how premium cigars are supposed to go through the substantial equivalency pre-market review process and how health testing is supposed to work for premium cigars. And so it's kind of like trying to fly the plane while you build it, which in one sense, from the agency's perspective, I guess it works. But as a manufacturer trying to comply with the law and and plan and so forth. It makes it really challenging and frustrating, the fact that we are trying to figure all this out while it's happening.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and it seems like there's a number of deadlines that are coming very soon, and to your point that there's still a lot of details still to be fleshed out. I mean, I guess, and I'm not asking you to necessarily comment on this, but it doesn't seem that the situation is very well organized if details need to be planned out, but deadlines are looming,
Yeah, I mean, the cigar industry has been working together to challenge FDA's regulations, specifically the lack of clarity on a lot of this stuff. And we've been able to have some success in that regard. I mean, for instance, there was a deadline to test premium cigars, but FDA still hasn't said how we're supposed to do that. There aren't any international standards or reliable ways for testing premium cigars like there are that exist for cigarettes and so forth. And so we've been successful in getting that delayed. And to be more specific, where health testing stands now is that the deadline won't apply until FDA first issues guidance on how testing is supposed to work. And so it's just kind of one of those things that we're working through. But even as recently as yesterday, we're pushing this issue in Congress, pushing in the courts, pushing with the agency, basically just trying to highlight the fact that premium cigars are a distinct class of goods, and you can't take a one-size-fits-all approach and regulate them like cigarettes, regulate them like vapors, that we have to tailor the regulation of premium cigars to the unique characteristics of all-natural, handcrafted product.
Well, speaking of crafted, all-natural products, we're very much enjoying the American over here. Jeff,
Amen.
Thoughts as
Thank you.
Thoughts as you were smoking there, Jeff?
Like I said, it's just got an incredible flavor to it. I'm gonna steal something here from another podcast, but I'm stacking dimes. I mean, this is so well constructed. I'm genuinely enjoying the cigar, and I love the fact that it's all American, front to back, and that has to be hard for you to be able to do, because there are so many components that go into not only the cigar but the box and everything else. Did you have anything that you had trouble being able to get made in America for this cigar?
So that's a great question. At the beginning, I was very concerned about the blend. I mean, there's enough premium cigar tobacco grown in the States that I knew we could find enough cigar tobacco, to roll something, but I was worried in particular that the blend would be one-dimensional, that it would be kind of flat or even too sort of mellow. But after some trial and error, we were very happy to be able to craft what we think is a really solid medium-bodied cigar that's flavorful, that's enjoyable, that's not this sort of one-dimensional product. I mean, to be more specific, I didn't want the American to be a gimmick. I mean, we're making a real world-class cigar. I mean, it's unique in that it's all American, but it's also still a really, really good cigar. And so at the beginning, it took us a while to figure out the right mix of tobacco. And just to be even clearer on this point, tobacco isn't all the same. And so, like, for instance, the cigarette tobacco and the chewing tobacco that's grown in Virginia and North Carolina and Kentucky and elsewhere, none of that is used for cigars. It's a different species. It's like an apple to an orange. They're both fruit, but they're very different. And so the amount of cigar tobacco that's grown in the States is relatively small. And so we just don't have as much to work with like we do when we go to Nicaragua or the Dominican Republic and can blend tobacco from all over. So being able to get a good blend was our first real challenge, but we're really pleased with how it turned out and the
Well,
flavorful medium-bodied cigar that we're able to create.
You've definitely pulled that off here. This is an excellent cigar.
Thank you.
Yes.
And, we since starting the podcast, we've smoked, and I've smoked cigars on and off for many, many years. But it's been one of those things where, we've had some cigars that we've really enjoyed, and we've had some cigars just horribly underwhelm us. And this is not one of those. This is a great smoke.
This is definitely one that, while
it would be very awkward with you on the phone if it wasn't. but it really is a good cigar.
Well, and admittedly, while it might be a cigar that's kind of maybe a little more difficult for some of our listeners to track down, just due to
seek it out,
the limited supply that your rollers can produce and everything else. It's definitely one that if you do stumble across one somewhere, or in my case, have somebody say, hey, I can get these for you. Do you want them? I would highly recommend all of our listeners do that, because this is it's an experience of a cigar. To be able to say you're having a fully all-American cigar, I think it's definitely worth the time and effort to track one down.
And I hate to say this, going into it smoking this cigar, I'm not going to lie to you. I really thought it was a gimmick cigar. It's not. It's a great cigar. So I was going into what you were talking about, where you didn't want it to be a gimmick, and it definitely is not.
Really, really appreciate it. Cigars are all about relaxation and enjoyment. Nobody needs a cigar. We choose to light up and enjoy a cigar for pleasure. Somebody makes a glass. Somebody makes scissors. Somebody makes towels. There are a lot of things out there that exist for utility, and you kind of just need to have. But cigars aren't like that, and so it's really important to us, particularly as a family business, to be able to connect with the people who enjoy our products, because they're made purely for relaxation and enjoyment. So it's really meaningful to hear you guys enjoy the cigar, and because that's really what it's all about. But particularly with the American, to be able to have a cigar that's enjoyable, but also connects back to the history of our country, the history of our family business, of the cigar city of Tampa. It's just a really special thing, I think, and really appreciate you guys lighting up the American.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Drew, we really appreciate your time. Is there anything that you'd like to talk about? Anything that you'd like to promote? Anything upcoming that you'd like the listeners to know about?
No, I would just say that in addition to the American, we also roll a wide variety of other cigars.
Yes, that's true.
We have our JC Newman Pensa factory in Esteli, Nicaragua, which is the second largest factory there, and that's where we roll our Brick House cigars, Perla Del Mar, El Baton, our Quorum bundled cigars, and a bunch of others. And we've also been partners with the Arturo Fuente family for 30 plus years now, and they make our Diamond Crown Classic and Maximus and Julius Caesar and Black Diamond cigars, and our Cuesta Rey cigars as well. And we sell their cigars in the United States. And so we have a wide variety of handmade cigars on the market. And, I think when I walk into a humidor in a retail store, a lounge around the country, I always think to myself, what really separates us being JC Newman and our partners, the Arturo Fuente family, is that we are both two 4-generation, 100-plus-year-old family businesses that have been making cigars for more than a century. And so, as both companies, we're very personally invested and in it, which means that we want to make sure that every cigar is right and that it's as perfect as it can be. And we really appreciate you for helping us tell our story and sharing the enjoyment of cigars with your listeners. And I'm so happy to hear that you're enjoying the American.
Yeah. Now, to your point there, I am a big fan of the Brick House. I like the
as am I.
I prefer.
Thank you.
I really like. I'm a big fan of the Mighty size. I'm a 6x60 kind of guy. So the fact that you guys offer that, I love that, both in the Maduro and the Connecticut. And I know Jeff is a regular smoker of the Quorums.
I actually am. I like the Toro shade grown. So I
Excellent.
enjoy those cigars. I do a lot of traveling, and the thing I like about it, for me, let's be honest, I'm cheap. And everybody that listens to the podcast knows that because I've said it over and over. But it's a very affordable cigar. So if you're going to be doing a lot of driving, and, like I do in my Jeep, I'll light up a cigar when I get going somewhere. And, it usually takes me about an hour to finish a cigar as I drive wherever I'm going. And it's one of those things where, I can have a cigar, I can enjoy it, but it's a little more affordable for me. But again, breaking out a brick house, we have a store here in the St. Louis area that had a promotion going on, and it was buy 5 brick house, and we got a free ashtray. So I have a couple of your ashtrays that I started stacking those up like cordwood as I went there. So
thank you.
Yeah, no, that sits on my back deck proudly and is in use quite a bit.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Well, 2 things there. The first with Quorum, it's the number 1 selling cigar brand out of Nicaragua right now. And the reason is it's because it's just an incredible value. And I appreciate you referring to it as an affordable cigar. Sometimes people call it a cheap cigar, but I really hate that term because it's a high quality handmade product, and it's got a great flavor. It burns well. We age the tobaccos that go in it, just like a box cigar like Brick House. But because of the efficiency of our factory and the fact that we're an old company, we're able to roll it at a pretty affordable price, and it's a really good cigar, and it just does really well, and so really can't go wrong with Quorum. And then with Brick House too, the one thing I'll mention about Brick House is that when you open up a box of Brick House or look at one of those ashtrays that you have and you see the historic Brick House cigar label, that was my great grandparents' house in Austria-Hungary. My grandfather my great grandfather told the story that he was born in Austria-Hungary in 1875, and he was born in a small village. And in that village, the family house was the only house made out of brick.
Oh.
And on the first floor was a sort of a general store / tavern. It was kind of like a community gathering space. On the second floor is where my family lived. And when they immigrated to the United States, along with so many others in the late 1800s, and my family settled in Cleveland, and there it was the height of the Industrial Revolution. It was a big, bustling, humming city. It was loud and dirty, and just full of life. But my great grandfather missed his homeland. He missed the pastoral setting of being out in nature with animals and clean air and pastures. And so in the 1920s and 30s, he made Brick House cigars as kind of like a throwback to where he was born. And so every time I open up a box of Brick House, I always look at the label and see that was the house where my great-grandfather was born into, and it was one of his earliest brands. And so it's a very special brand for us, and really appreciate hearing that you guys enjoy it.
I really like knowing that you guys have so much family history tied into your brands and your products. That it adds an extra level of kind of specialness to what you guys are putting out, knowing that there's so much of your own family history and so much of yourselves wrapped up into your products.
Well, it's who we are. It's who our family and our company is. And, the great thing about the cigar industry is that we are an industry of families and family businesses, with a few small exceptions. I mean, that's what our industry is. And whether it's the Fuente family, the Padron family, Perdomo family, we can go on and on. We're a bunch of families, many of us who've been doing business together for decades and generations. And so while we may be competitors in one sense, we're all friends, and there's a common belief that the premium cigar industry is stronger when we are all in it together. In other words, like, we really like competition. We really like having new small companies, people starting to make their own cigars. All of that sort of energy and vibrancy is really healthy for the cigar industry. And so we think there's plenty of room for everybody to be successful in the cigar industry now. And we hope that continues to be the case.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because as we've been doing this podcast now, the Cigar Pulpit, for months and months, we have gotten to meet, several of the cigar manufacturers, several of the members of the families, and it's funny to hear you say what you just said, because that's what we're finding throughout the entire industry. It's not just you saying it, it's how everyone actually feels.
Well, I think it's true, and it's one of those things that's just unique about the premium cigar industry that you don't find with the people who make toilet paper or toothbrushes. It's just something special about the handcrafted premium cigar industry.
Well, Drew, thank you very much for all of your time. This has been just a fantastic conversation, and we've really enjoyed getting to know the backstory of both you, your company, and the American as we sit and enjoy the American.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me this afternoon, and so happy that you're able to enjoy the American, and just want to invite you and all your listeners to come visit us in the historic cigar city of Tampa, Florida next year, and to be able to see our El Reloj factory. We'd love to have you there and help us celebrate our family and our company's 125th anniversary next year.
Most definitely. Do you guys have a date on the calendar for when you're looking at kind of kicking that off, or is it still kind of up in the air and people can...
So we expect our restoration to be complete and to reopen the factory to the public in late February. We don't have an exact date then, but starting around late February, our factory will be open for visitors and tours and rolling classes and so forth, Monday through Friday, and we'd love to have you guys visit.
Yeah.
That may have to be a spring Nick and Gator experience.
I think it might. So
Nice.
In terms of following JC Newman on social media, you guys, where are you all at?
So our website is jcnewman.com, and you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, and it's just JC Newman, and we'll love to connect with you on social media and hopefully meet you in Tampa.
Perfect.
I think we can make that happen.
Yep. Well, Drew, thank you.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you very much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Of course.
And
nice. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, as we leave here, I got to tell you, I'm loving the cigar. I'm halfway through the cigar, and I haven't ashed yet. Nick's ashed 2 or 3 times now, and I'm just hanging on because it's so well constructed, and it's just a beautiful cigar.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. There are a lot of wonderful cigars in the world, but there truly is no cigar like the American, and just so happy that you're enjoying it, and 'cause that's what it's all about. We make these cigars to tell the story and to be enjoyed, and so happy that you're able to enjoy it.